All right, welcome back to the show. My name is Jasmine Diavalar.
I'm Anisa Omar.
And this is our show where we talk about, current events, and particularly from our perspective as Black activists here in Mankato. Last time we talked, we were talking about the upcoming Derek Chauvin trial in the murder of George Floyd and talking about juror selection. So just kind of like the questionnaires, just the questions that were being asked. You can already tell what direction that the trial is already going. And I was a little frustrated just in the way that they were trying to question, like in the questionnaire itself, was trying to find folks who can be impartial to what the world witnessed a year ago on May 25th. And it was just like, they'd rather accept jurors who have connection with police officers as family members, or are impartial, or have a negative connotation for the Black Lives Matter movement, and then send away many Black folks who have seen the video or know the history of America and know that what happened was in fact murder. And so they refused or could not possibly be impartial. Now the trial has started, and I've been following it. I know that you haven't been really following it. I know you've been studying a lot. But just from what I've witnessed in the last couple of days is the defense trying to basically put everyone else on trial besides Derek Chauvin. And it's been obviously not surprisingly disheartening to see that not only are the witnesses being where it appears that they're being put on trial, but just none of this is defendable in my opinion. And I honestly shouldn't I'm regretting being so invested in it as far as like watching the trial like nonstop on live and things like that. But I think it is important to kind of shed light on how the system works and how it's stacked against Black people constantly. The fact that Derek Chauvin even has an opportunity to have a fair trial and George was not given that opportunity. He is not here today to even defend himself or have a trial. And I don't know, I've just been really emotional today because of what I saw. But just to kind of like let you know about like the witnesses and things like that, once a couple of people that were there on the scene, I think George was really lucky to have those folks on the scene because there was an off-duty firefighter who was trying to provide medical care to George and pleading with the officers to even just check a pulse, to just to see like there was still life within him. And she described how she already could tell while going onto the scene that he had an altered level of consciousness, as she said, meaning that he was not responding to pain anymore. He wasn't responding to the pain of Derek Chauvin's knee on his neck. And so she knew already that he probably was not conscious. And so her response as a trained EMT is I need to take care for this human being who is unconscious. And that is what the police officer's job should be. However, they ignored every single call for medical attention, to let up, to just even let him sit up, for him to breathe. Like, just as soon as he was handcuffed, he was, talking about how he couldn't breathe, and he was complaining that he couldn't breathe the entire time, and he had just had COVID, and he was scared from the jump. And it's like, to see the treatment that he suffered, obviously, but then to see the witnesses also be traumatized and see it like in their faces, like, this is how I would be treated by Minneapolis Police Department here, like, for over $20. Like, George's life was worth $20 if you look at it, like.
Right.
And so, what is your stance as far as like checking in, being involved as a Black woman, as a Black activist right now? Like, for me, I personally want to be in tune with kind of, the events and like checking in on the trial every day. But as far as like the extent of how much you're staying in tune, like, what do you think your part of this is as far as like, do you want to know? Do you not? Like, where's your head at right now?
Well, first I want to kind of cover the impartial. You have to be impartial to be on the juror, and I think that just opens up more space for whiteness. Space whiteness doesn't really need to be in right now because we all know what happens when whiteness occurs. Like it's like there's no sense of logic. Like, and so the way in which Black individuals, especially Black jurors, I'm assuming, were questioned during that process. It's like, how do I remove my identity from myself? And, you know, of course, it's going to be more easy for white individuals to be picked because that's going to be easy for them to do so. And yeah, I've chosen not to follow or watch what is currently happening. Part of that is because that's just kind of triggering for me. And the other part is I don't perceive any form of justice happening from whatever the result may be. I don't think jailing killer cops is going to bring justice. I don't think jailing killer cops is going to stop Black and brown bodies from being killed or being murdered. And so I just don't want to invest in that system or reinforce that system where if I watch it, I become invested into thinking some form of justice has occurred if Derek is sentenced or if he is, convicted of murdering George Floyd. So that's just, I don't want to open myself up emotionally to thinking that's a form of justice. So I've decided to detach from that. Right. And I also know I would open myself up to, as like watching the witnesses be put on trial. And I don't want to emotionally go through that knowing that there's no form of justice that will ever happen for George Floyd until these systems themselves are gone or abolished, tore down to the ground. And so that's just where I'm currently at right now. Yeah. What do you think justice is for you?
I totally agree with you as far as like justice is not going to be served whether they convict him or not. Yeah. And I think people who are watching and are observing the trial happen are going to fall into that trap and say, let's lock him up, full support of. A lot of people are in agreement that this was murder and thus he should be in jail. But that, to me, is not justice because we've already had people after George Floyd die at the hands of police. Like, this problem is not going to go away. And it's like, we're screaming for justice in the streets. We're seeing no justice, no streets, no justice, no peace. And it's like, what does justice look like at the end of the day? And it's like hard to even envision that when you re-traumatize yourself, like as I have done, trying to keep up with the trial. And it's like, I don't know. Right. Sorry.
The stress that puts onto Black bodies. And if he is, let's say, let off, as many cops are, the disposability that comes from that as Black beings.
And we witnessed that already in the video.
Right. Or in other cases, over and over, like Tamir Rice, over and over again.
Yeah, a complete disregard for Black life.
And I don't want to keep hearing the numerous ways Black lives are being taken from us, because I really am at a point where this is normalized for me and I want to stop that. And so I don't want to hear witnesses be re-traumatized. I don't want to hear stories of the 1,001 ways or watch the same video over and over again to just normalize that in my mind.
It just feels like a trauma junkie thing where it's just like people are it's so normal to watch Black people die that it's like entertainment. It's now filtered into entertainment as like
Hollywood.
And Hollywood. And now we see, I didn't see like our conversation going this way, but it's literally, I just saw a trailer of this movie on either Netflix or something else, and it's talking about very real trauma, but in a horror film, making it horror.
Where he wakes up and he's murdered over and over again, a Black male.
And I just also saw one that I think is going to be on Amazon Prime, where this Black family moves into a white town, and the white neighborhood is trying to get these people out of their town. And it's presented in a way that it's like this indie horror like scenario, but it's like this is real. This is real things that have happened to real people. This is like our lives are horror stories. And now it's just entertainment.
It is entertainment, and they put it under the guise of educating folks, but it's like my life does not need to be an educational pamphlet.
Yeah.
You know?
You don't
like
have to see me die to
all
care
the time.
about my
Correct.
life.
I don't want to see Black death. I want to see Black joy.
Right.
And so, whoever is following that trial, if you feel as though it's coming down on you hard, I do advise you to take time for yourself, to care for yourself.
Right.
Because in this society, Black beings aren't worthy of being taken care of or us taking care of ourselves.
Right. Yeah. And I've even seen some people, especially white people, on my like Facebook feed or just on social media in general saying like, oh, I can't bear to watch. It's too much. It's too much.
Girl.
And it's like the one little snippet that you get of the trauma that we face day in and day out, like that's not going to kill you. Like this is real life for millions of people.
Right.
And whatever you think that your trauma that you're going to get from this is a million times worse.
Right.
And I honestly regret ever watching that body cam footage because...
Yeah. And I can't believe they're playing it over and over again. Like,
yeah.
Damn.
And, just the way that the defense is trying to justify this or just trying to relinquish Chauvin or any of those other officers of accountability. Like... all three of you were on his body the entire time. And even in the body cam footage, one of the officers was like, can we lay him on the side? Yeah. And they refused, still.
Right.
Even when they were in the middle of the act of murdering him,
right.
One of them had the guts to say, can we just turn him on the side? And still. So whatever, it doesn't matter the outcome to me.
Yeah.
What was done, is done, and
what sucks when it comes to that is because like his family experienced, George Floyd's family experienced, it was first traumatic, and it's also like harmful to have witnessed your family member go the way that they did at the hands of police. And so like watching press conferences where they're calling for Derek and the other officers to be held responsible, and for them, they perceive justice to be jail or convicted of murder. I've wrestled with that too.
Yeah.
Because I'm not in there. Like I am not here. I can't tell them what is justice and what's not.
Right.
And so I do hope that the family, regardless of what the result may be, receives some form of healing and is currently experiencing or is able to work through that, because I can only imagine if they're following that case how it must be.
Yeah. And I know a lot of them are, in Minneapolis now, and there's a lot of folks there.
And what makes me a bit upset is like activism, like the celebrity that we've noticed this summer, activism create among notable figures across the U.S. The way in which I was recently listening to this Clubhouse conversation with Tamir Rice's mother, and how these activists come and they swarm you. And she was recounting her experience, like she really wasn't able to grieve her son's death. Like these organizations came, they're like, oh, we need to hurry up. And then her attorney at that time was Benjamin Crump. It's like, oh, we need to do this, this, and this. And she was unaware of everything that was happening. She wasn't even processing. She didn't get to grieve her son's death. And the way in which they place you in front of cameras, Right. And you have to showcase your humanity or whatever that is to have individuals understand your pain. And so I hope they're not always putting these families out on TV. And I hope whoever's around those families is truly looking out for the best of them instead of them just kind of making Black Death a mockery. Like holding barbecues for Breonna Taylor or events for Breonna Taylor or commodifying Black Death. I don't want to have Black Death commodified. Like
And we've seen that already happen
It
over
is.
this past year,
Yeah.
you know, especially with Breonna Taylor, and she got no semblance of justice. So, and we've seen that. So it's like, what do we ask for? What are we pleading for? What are our demands at this point? It's like hard to even put it to words because it's going to continue to happen.
All right. And a lot of people are taking demands in just the circles of reform. More body cameras. You know, like, oh, we can just kind of talk about the Justice and Policing Act.
Right.
What Congress did this past summer, you know, like the same old, like community policing. One thing I do like is qualified immunity, I believe, would be they wouldn't, police officers wouldn't have qualified immunity, which I think would be a good thing. But it's like the same old reforms.
It's like these bills that they try to put in honor of George or Brianna or anyone.
Utilizing black names
To name their bills, but then when what's really inside the bill is more funding to the police so that they can get more training, so that they can then ignore that training.
No, even you can train whoever you want.
Yeah.
But more funding equals more Black death to me.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to more funding for police officers. Like, I don't know. It's yeah. I'm really stuck because I'm at a point where I want to abolish these systems because these systems will never work for us.
Yeah.
And that's just, I've kind of checked out from looking into, let's try community policing. It's like, no.
It's not going to work.
Right.
It ain't going to work.
Yeah.
And like one of the other things about the trial that was really getting to me was the witness, Donald Williams, who was the trained MMA fighter, and also worked in security alongside Minneapolis Police Department. Yes, he has worked with them before. And just the way that the defense was trying to paint him as this angry black man, as if it wasn't justified for him to yell at them, for him to respond in anger to what he was watching and witnessing. And he just was so composed, and it just makes me think about how often we are expected to be composed in our anger and not express it. So where do you want the anger to go if we can't express it? A lot of it's internalized. We are then susceptible to higher levels of depression and anxiety. And George suffered from those things as well. And he was literally saying that he was claustrophobic. He was fearful of his life. He didn't even know that the bill was counterfeit. And to get that treatment
it was like revealed later that it wasn't a counterfeit bill.
I'm not quite sure about that, but just like from the video of their interaction with him was already forceful. It wasn't even about trying to figure out, okay, what was the solution there? What did they want from him? Like, sure, it was a counterfeit. Find another fucking $20 bill. Like, I don't know what, it just blows my mind that was what took his life, when it could have been anything else. And we literally just saw a recent shooting happen in Boulder, Colorado, where we have these mass shootings, and it's white, homegrown male terrorists who are killing mass amounts of people and are taken to Burger King. And they're treated with respect. After they've just murdered people. George Floyd did not murder anyone. Right. And it's like, they know how to differentiate the amount of force that they can use on someone, and they choose not to.
And that's, like you said, they treat them with respect, like they're always detained alive. But it's like, Black people aren't able to be individuals, we're not able to be humans, we're not able to be people. You know, I think we're just subjects in this white supremacist world or society.
We're being hunted.
And so there's no way we'll ever receive fair trial. Like, we have individuals right now behind bars. A man just died about a week ago because he couldn't afford bail in our jails. And so it's like, George Floyd was murdered, yet this policing system is continuously murdering Black and brown individuals behind bars all the time.
Right.
And they don't have cameras. And so that's just why I'm literally at that point where we need to tear all of this down.
Yeah.
Like, there's no compromise here because I'm not compromising on Black life.
No. And it's like, the world saw that video. What more do you need? Like, it just doesn't make sense that we're even in this situation where we're watching a fucking trial. Yeah.
Oof.
I definitely need to take some time to...
Right, care for yourself.
Yeah, because that shit just traumatized me all over again.
Yeah.
And it brought me back to when I first found out and writing my thesis about Black people, Black culture, what we offer to the world, and how our lives are stolen in return.
Right.
Yeah. I don't really know how to wrap this up because I'm just really emotional right now.
What's the ending on our podcast?
Cash apps.
Oh,
Seriously.
Yeah, you're right. So we were just talking briefly about Samaria Rice, Tamir Rice's mother. She is currently accepting donations to her Cash App, as well as Lisa Simpson, Richard Richner's mother. He was killed in California. I believe he was killed in LA. And the Black Lives Matter chapter in LA are refusing to give her the funds needed for his funeral, to cover the cost of her funeral a while back.
Wow.
And they're just holding on to those funds. So that's what also gets me upset, is like these Black Lives Matter, the global network, receiving all these funds. And there's families whose children are literally being hunted and murdered by police. And they're literally asking the general public to save them from homelessness, while the Black Lives Matter global network is receiving millions of dollars,
profiting off of Black death.
while Tamika Mallory's organization is receiving millions of dollars, and they're attaching themselves to these families who are like experiencing police violence. Yet these same families have to beg for money just to not be houseless or not have access to transportation.
Yeah. And I think this points to a bigger issue, is that a lot of Black folks are in poverty and are very close to homelessness. And I think now is the perfect time for communities who want to do more and don't know where to donate or to give funds. I think direct aid to these individuals, especially in our community here,
Right.
it lessens their interaction with police if they're not on the fucking streets.
And also, like, if going through organizations, like, you just give individuals money directly. Because half the times these organizations who are run by Black individuals are not helping Black families who experience police violence. So this is our little segment of Open Your Purse, and you'll see their Cash Apps down here. And they also have created a list of demands for the Black Lives Matter Network, Until Freedom, which I think is with Tamika Mallory, and the demands that they have for those two organizations and how to hold them accountable and transparent. So yeah, hopefully we'll attach that link to their demands and you can follow it. But
Yeah. Well, thanks again for tuning in. If you have any questions, again, our email is letstalkaboutitpod20@gmail.com. We'd love to talk about some more lighthearted things, because
Right.
today
I wanna
was
talk
a
about
really
Black
heavy
joy.
one. Yes, we'll
Black
definitely
joy.
make sure that we talk more about, lighthearted things. And
and this is important. It just takes so much out of it.
it does.
But yeah.
Alrighty.
We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.